All right, let's get into something that's going to hit deep: the chosen ones. If you're here, if you're listening to this right now, there's a reason. You've always felt a little different, haven't you? A little more tuned into something bigger, like there's a layer of reality that others can't quite see, but you can feel it. You know it's there. And maybe you've noticed that your life is being guided in ways that can only be described as, well, divine. But here's the kicker: you're not alone. There's a community out there, a high vibrational community, and if you're truly one of the chosen ones, you're already part of it. The signs are subtle, but once you recognize them, there's no going back. So, how do you know? How do you know that you belong to this high vibrational community? Let's start by talking about energy. Everything is energy, right? And I'm not just talking about the woo-woo spiritual stuff. I'm talking about the very real, very tangible energy that we all emit and absorb. You've felt it. You walk into a room and immediately you can sense if the vibe is off. It's not something you think about, it's something you feel. That's because your energy is finely tuned. It's like a spiritual antenna that's constantly picking up signals, vibrations from the people around you, from the places you visit, and even from the thoughts you think. But here's where it gets interesting. If you're truly part of a high vibrational community, you'll notice that these signals you're picking up have started to shift. You'll find yourself naturally drawn to people who are on the same wavelength as you. These are people who get it, people who don't drain your energy, but instead lift you up. And you'll also notice that certain people, certain environments start to feel heavy, almost suffocating. It's not that these places or people are bad, it's just that their vibration doesn't match yours anymore. They're operating on a different frequency.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound spiritual lesson.
Let me ask you this: how often have you walked away from a conversation, a job, or even a relationship and felt completely drained? Like your energy was sucked out of you, and you didn't even realize it until it was too late. That's a sign. It's a sign that your vibration is higher than what you're interacting with. And when you're part of a high vibrational community, you start to notice these things more and more. You don't have the tolerance for low vibe energy anymore. It's not about being judgmental, it's about protecting your energy. Because here's the thing, your energy is sacred. But being part of a high vibrational community doesn't just mean being surrounded by people who lift you up. It's deeper than that. It's about alignment. You'll start to notice that your life is aligning in ways that feel almost magical. Synchronicities, signs, and coincidences start happening more frequently. You think of someone and they call you. You're wondering about something, and the answer shows up in the most unexpected way. This isn't random. This is the universe, or God, or source, or whatever you want to call it, speaking directly to you. It's a sign that you're in tune with a higher frequency and that you're on the right path. But here's the catch. Are you paying attention to the signs? Because the universe is always communicating with us, but most people miss it. They're too caught up in their day-to-day lives, too focused on the noise of the world to hear the subtle whispers of the divine. If you're part of a high vibrational community, those whispers are getting louder. The signs are becoming more obvious, but you have to be awake to see them. Now, let's get practical for a second. How do you know you're seeing the signs? How do you recognize that you're part of this high vibrational community? One of the biggest indicators is that you've started to feel a sense of detachment from the things that used to matter to you. And I don't mean you've stopped caring about life or your responsibilities. I mean you've started to realize that a lot of delaying society tells us to care about status, money, material success, don't hold the same weight anymore. You're starting to care more about purpose. You're asking deeper questions like, what am I really here to do? And how can I make a meaningful impact? Let me ask you, when was the last time you felt truly fulfilled by something external? I think about it. If you're part of a high vibrational community, you've probably started to notice that real fulfillment doesn't come from outside of you. It comes from within. It comes from living in alignment with your soul's purpose. And when you're in alignment, the external world starts to reflect that. You attract people, opportunities, and experiences that resonate with your higher vibration. This is one of the biggest signs that you're part of a high vibrational community. You're not chasing things anymore. Things are coming to you. But let's get even deeper. Another sign that you belong to a high vibrational community is that you've become more sensitive. Sensitive to the energy around you, yes, but also sensitive to the needs and feelings of others. You've started to develop a heightened sense of empathy, a compassion that goes beyond just wanting to help people. You feel their pain, their joy, their struggles, and their triumphs as if they were your own. This is because, in a high vibrational community, the boundaries between me and you start to blur. You begin to realize that we're all connected, that what affects one affects all. And that's why you can no longer tolerate things like injustice, cruelty, or exploitation. It's not just about being spiritual or woke, it's about living in alignment with the truth that we are all one. Let me drop a deep question on you. How often do you feel a sense of responsibility for the collective? I'm not talking about guilt or obligation. I'm talking about an inner knowing that you are here to contribute to the upliftment of humanity. That's a sign. It's a sign that you're vibrating at a higher frequency and that you're part of a community of souls who are here to make a difference in the world. This isn't some grandiose ego-driven mission. It's subtle. It's quiet. It's the voice inside you that says, I am here for something bigger than myself. And this brings us to another key sign. You're no longer afraid of change. In fact, you've started to welcome it. You know that in order to grow, in order to evolve, you have to let go of the old and embrace the new. And this can be scary. But when you're part of a high vibrational community, you start to trust the process. You start to see that every challenge, every obstacle, every loss is actually an opportunity for growth. You start to understand that the universe is always working for you, not against you. And because of this, you've developed a deep sense of trust in yourself, in the process, and in the divine plan. If you've made it this far, you already know you're not just an ordinary person wandering through life. There's been something inside you, a drive, a sense of purpose, a calling that has always felt bigger than what society tells you to be. And once you start to recognize that you belong to a high vibrational community, something magical happens. You start attracting the right people, places, and experiences into your life. It's like the universe is responding to your frequency, and everything begins to align in ways that feel effortless. But let's break it down, because this is not just about luck or coincidence. There are deeper spiritual mechanics at play here. First, let's talk about energy again, because this is where it all begins. You've raised your vibration. You're operating at a higher frequency now. And by doing so, you've become a magnet for everything that resonates with that frequency. We often talk about the law of attraction, but let's think of it in a more nuanced way. It's not just about thinking positive thoughts and hoping that life will suddenly hand you everything you want. It's about becoming aligned with the energy of what you truly desire, whether that's meaningful relationships, purposeful work, or spiritual growth, and then allowing those things to flow naturally into your life. But here's the tricky part: you can't fake this. You can't just say, okay, I'm going to raise my vibration so I can get what I want. It doesn't work like that. The universe is far too intelligent to be tricked by superficial intentions. You have to actually become the vibration of what you want to attract. And this is where high vibrational communities come in. When you're surrounded by people who are also vibrating at a higher frequency, it becomes easier to raise your own. You feed off each other's energy. You inspire one another. You challenge each other to grow. And as a result, you start to notice that the right people are showing up in your life, seemingly out of nowhere. I think about this. How many times have you randomly met someone only to realize later that they were exactly what you needed at that moment? Maybe it was a conversation that shifted your perspective, or maybe they introduced you to an opportunity that changed the course of your life. These aren't accidents. These are the results of your vibration aligning with theirs. You were both vibrating on a frequency that allowed your paths to cross at just the right moment. But here's where it gets deeper. When you're part of a high vibrational community, you start to attract people who see you. Not just the surface level you, but the real you, the soul underneath the personality, the purpose underneath the actions. These are the kinds of people who don't just want to be in your life because of what you can do for them. They're in your life because they recognize that your paths are intertwined for a reason. They're your soul tribe. And when you meet these people, there's an instant connection, a sense of familiarity, like you've known them for lifetimes. That's because, in a way, you have. These soul connections are one of the clearest signs that you belong to a high vibrational community. They're the people who challenge you to grow, who mirror your own strengths and weaknesses back to you, who push you to become the highest version of yourself. And while these relationships are often beautiful and supportive, they're not always easy. Sometimes the people you attract in a high vibrational community will trigger you. They'll bring up unresolved wounds or fears that you didn't even know were there. But this is part of the process. These people are here to help you heal, to help you grow, and to help you step into your true power. Let me ask you a question. Have you ever noticed that the people who challenge you the most are often the ones who end up being your greatest teachers? This is no accident. In a high vibrational community, the people around you are not just there to make you feel good. They're there to help you evolve. And sometimes that means holding up a mirror to the parts of yourself that you've been avoiding. It's not always comfortable, but it's always necessary. But it's not just people that you'll start attracting. You'll also notice that certain places begin calling to you. Maybe you've always felt drawn to a particular city, or maybe you've had a sudden urge to visit a place you've never been before. This is because different places hold different vibrations, and as your vibration rises, you'll be naturally drawn to places that resonate with your new frequency. These could be sacred sites, spiritual retreats, or even just places in nature where you feel a deep sense of peace and connection. And here's the thing, when you follow that call, the right experiences will unfold. You'll find yourself in situations that seem almost too perfect to be true. You'll meet people who are on the same journey as you. You'll have experiences that feel divinely orchestrated, as if the universe is guiding every step you take. But you have to be willing to follow the call. You have to trust that when you're being drawn to a certain place or experience, there's a reason for it. It's not just a random impulse, it's your higher self guiding you toward what you need next on your journey. But let's go even deeper. One of the most profound signs that you belong to a high vibrational community is that you start to attract opportunities that align with your soul's purpose. These aren't just any opportunities, they're the ones that light you up, that make you feel alive, that make you feel like you're truly making a difference in the world. And the more you align with your higher vibration, the more these opportunities will show up. It's like the universe is saying, you're ready now. Here's the next step. But again, this isn't something you can force. You can't just sit around waiting for the perfect opportunity to fall into your lap. You have to be actively engaged in your own growth, in your own healing, in your own evolution. And when you are, those opportunities will present themselves in ways you never could have imagined. They'll come when you least expect them, but when you're most ready for them. Let me ask you one last question for this part. Are you ready to fully trust that the universe is bringing you exactly what you need, exactly when you need it? Because that's what happens when you're part of a high vibrational community. You stop worrying about how things will work out. You stop trying to control every little detail. You trust that as long as you're in alignment with your highest self, everything will fall into place. Now, let's dive into something truly transformative. If you've been following along, you're starting to get a sense of what it feels like to be part of a high vibrational community. You're beginning to recognize the signs, the synchronicities, the soul connections, the magnetic pull toward the right people, places, and opportunities. But here's where things get really deep. The moment you fully step into this high vibrational space, your entire reality begins to shift. It's like stepping through a doorway into a completely new world, a world where the rules of the game are different, where manifestation happens faster, where your inner state directly shapes your outer world in ways you've never experienced before. So, what does this shift look like? And more importantly, how do you navigate it? Let's start by talking about your perception of reality. You see, when you're vibrating at a lower frequency, everything feels more dense. Problems seem bigger, obstacles feel insurmountable, and life can feel like a constant struggle. But as you raise your vibration, and as you surround yourself with others who are doing the same, this heaviness starts to lift. You begin to see things from a higher perspective. You realize that the challenges you face aren't as solid as they once seemed. They're actually fluid, malleable, and subject to change. In other words, you start to understand that you have more power over your reality than you ever thought possible. Let me ask you something. How often do you feel like life is happening to you rather than for you? If you're like most people, you've probably spent a lot of your life feeling like a victim of circumstances, like things are just happening, and you're reacting to them. But when you begin to operate in a high vibrational community, something profound shifts. You start to realize that life is not happening to you, it's happening through you. You are the creator of your experience. You are the one shaping the reality around you based on your thoughts, beliefs, and, most importantly, your vibration. This is one of the most powerful realizations you can have. When you're in a high vibrational state, your frequency acts like a tuning fork, harmonizing with the people, experiences, and opportunities that match that vibration. You're no longer a passive observer of your life, you're an active co-creator. And the more you embrace this truth, the faster your reality will begin to shift. But here's the thing, this shift isn't just mental, it's energetic. When you raise your vibration and align with a high vibrational community, your energy field begins to expand. You become more magnetic. And this isn't just a metaphor, it's literal. Quantum physics shows us that we're all made of energy, constantly interacting with the energy around us. When your vibration is high, you naturally attract more of what you want, and you repel what no longer serves you. It's not magic, it's science. But it feels magical, doesn't it? Now, let's talk about something crucial, your emotional state. One of the biggest shifts that happens when you're in a high vibrational community is that your emotions start to stabilize. This doesn't mean you'll never feel sadness, anger, or frustration again. Those emotions are part of the human experience. But what changes is your relationship to those emotions. Instead of being overwhelmed by them, you start to observe them. You become the witness, not the victim. You understand that emotions are just energy moving through you, and you have the power to choose how long you stay in any emotional state. Think about it. How often do you let your emotions control you? How often do you react impulsively, only to regret it later? That's a sign of being stuck in lower vibrations. When you're in a high vibrational community, you're surrounded by people who help you rise above that. You start to realize that emotions are temporary and they don't define you. You learn to let them flow through you without clinging to them. This is emotional mastery. And once you develop it, your entire reality shifts because you're no longer ruled by your emotions, you're guided by your higher self. But let's go even deeper. As your vibration rises, you'll notice that time begins to feel different. This is one of the most fascinating aspects of being in a high vibrational community. When you're vibrating at a higher frequency, you start to experience what some call the flow state. Time seems to expand. Hours can pass in what feels like minutes, and you're so immersed in the present moment that everything else fades away. This is because, at higher vibrations, you're operating closer to the frequency of the eternal now, the place where past, present, and future all blend together. In this state, manifestation happens more quickly because you're not bound by the linear perception of time that most people are stuck in. Let me ask you another question. When was the last time you felt truly present, like time didn't even exist? If you can remember a moment like that, you've already tapped into what it feels like to vibrate at a higher frequency. And the more you live in that state, the more your reality shifts to support it. You start to notice that things flow more easily. You're no longer pushing against life, trying to force things to happen. Instead, you're in a state of allowing. You trust that what you need will come to you at the right time, and it does because you're vibrating in harmony with the universe. But here's something important. Not everyone will understand this shift. When you start vibrating at a higher frequency, some people in your life may not get it. They might think you've changed, or that you're acting differently. And in a way, they're right. You have changed. You're no longer operating in the same energy field as before. And because of that, some relationships will naturally fall away. It's not that you're better than anyone else, it's just that your vibration no longer matches theirs. This is one of the hardest parts of the shift, but it's also one of the most necessary. As you rise, you'll attract new people into your life who are on the same wavelength, and these new connections will support your growth in ways you never thought possible. Let me ask you one final question for this part. Are you willing to let go of what no longer serves you, even if it means leaving behind people or situations that once felt safe? This is the ultimate test of being in a high vibrational community. It requires courage. It requires trust. But when you take that leap, your entire reality shifts in ways that are beyond anything you could have imagined. All right, you've made it this far. You've started to recognize the signs. You've felt the shift. And now you're realizing that living in a high vibrational state isn't just a temporary experience, it's a way of life. But here's the big question: how do you sustain it? How do you keep that high frequency going, especially when life inevitably throws challenges your way? And more importantly, how do you thrive in a community of like-minded souls who are also walking this path with you? Let's start with the concept of flow. Flow is that state where everything feels effortless. You're not forcing anything, you're simply allowing life to unfold while staying deeply connected to your inner guidance. It's the sweet spot where action and surrender meet, where you're fully engaged in the present moment and everything just clicks. You've probably experienced it before, maybe during a creative project, in nature, or while meditating. Time melts away and you feel completely in tune with something bigger than yourself. But here's the thing. Flow isn't something that just happens randomly. It's something you can cultivate. And the key to living in flow is maintaining your vibration. If you've ever tried to force something, whether it's a relationship, a job, or even a creative idea, you know how exhausting it can be. That's because forcing comes from a place of fear, lack, or attachment. But when you're in flow, everything unfolds naturally because you're aligned with your higher self and the universe. You're vibrating at a frequency where things come to you rather than you having to chase them. So how do you stay in that state? It starts with awareness. You have to constantly check in with yourself and ask, where is my energy right now? If you find yourself feeling anxious, stressed, or disconnected, that's a sign that your vibration has dropped. And that's okay, it happens to everyone. The key is not to judge yourself for it, but to gently bring yourself back into alignment. This can be as simple as taking a few deep breaths, stepping outside for some fresh air, or meditating for a few minutes. The more you practice this, the easier it becomes to recognize when you're out of flow and to shift yourself back into it. But let me ask you, how often do you take the time to consciously raise your vibration? Life gets busy. We get caught up in our routines, in our responsibilities, in the noise of the world. But if you want to live in flow, if you want to sustain that high vibration, you have to make it a priority. This isn't about adding more to your to-do list. It's about shifting your perspective. It's about approaching everything you do from a place of alignment. Whether it's your work, your relationships, or even something as simple as making breakfast, ask yourself, am I doing this from a place of flow, or am I doing this from a place of resistance? Now, let's talk about the role of community in sustaining this high vibration. One of the most powerful ways to stay in flow is by surrounding yourself with people who are also committed to living at a higher frequency. When you're part of a high vibrational community, you're constantly being supported, uplifted, and inspired by the energy of those around you. There's a sense of shared purpose, of collective growth, that makes it easier to stay aligned with your higher self. But here's the thing. Like-minded souls don't just show up by accident. You attract them into your life when you're vibrating at the frequency of who you truly are. When you're authentic, when you're living in alignment with your highest self, you naturally draw others who are doing the same. This is why it's so important to be honest with yourself about where you're at. If you're still holding on to old beliefs, old patterns, or old relationships that don't serve you, it's going to be harder to attract the people who will help you grow. But when you let go of what no longer serves you, when you fully step into your truth, the right people will come into your life almost effortlessly. Let me ask you another deep question. Are you willing to let go of who you've been in order to become who you truly are? This is the crux of living in a high vibrational community. It requires you to be vulnerable, to be open, to be willing to grow, and sometimes that means shedding the layers of your old self that you've outgrown. But when you do, you'll be met with others who are on the same journey, and together you'll lift each other higher. One of the most beautiful things about being in a high vibrational community is the sense of co-creation that happens. It's not just about your individual growth anymore, it's about what you can create together. Whether it's a project, a movement, or simply the energy you share, when like-minded souls come together, the possibilities are infinite. This is where true magic happens. You start to realize that you're not just here to raise your own vibration, you're here to help elevate the collective consciousness. But here's the last piece of wisdom I want to leave you with. Thriving in a high vibrational community isn't just about what you can get from it, it's about what you can give. When you're living in flow, when you're aligned with your higher self, you naturally want to give back. You want to share your energy, your wisdom, your love with the people around you. This is how the community thrives. It's a constant exchange of energy, giving and receiving in perfect balance. And the more you give, the more you receive. It's not about keeping score. It's about recognizing that we're all in this together, and that by raising each other up, we all rise higher. So, let me ask you one final question. Are you ready to fully embrace this journey? To live in flow, to sustain your high vibration, and to thrive in a community of like-minded souls who are here to change the world? If the answer is yes, then welcome, you're already part of the shift. Now, it's time to fully step into your power and start living the life you were born to live. This is your call to action. Keep your vibration high, trust the flow, and remember, you are never alone in this journey. The community is always here, and together we're creating something beautiful.